Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. We're going to get started here in just 1 second. Oh, there's Josh. Josh, I was calling you on the other line. Wasn't sure you had the Zoom link.
I got it. Yeah, I just got your email. Perfect.
Yeah, nothing like good timing there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will give about 1 minute or so before we get started and welcome everybody to the call here. 1 second. All right, we are recording. It is 10:02 and we will get rolling. So happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to the weekly Art of Homeownership partner call. For those partners on the call, thank you guys for being back here. And for anybody who was invited, maybe as a real estate professional for some of our partners or mortgage professionals who are entertaining becoming a partner, we have a great guest today who will be helping us continue to add a lot of value to our clients. So we're going to introduce Josh here in a second, and then I'll pull up my slide deck and we'll see how much time we have to get through some of the other stuff that I had prepared. But for those of you that are somewhat new to the art of homeownership, this movement we're creating where we are separating art of homeownership professionals from average real estate professionals and average mortgage professionals is built around the idea that we're going to help our clients in every aspect of real estate or finance proactively for 30 plus years, right? As opposed to just getting a house and just getting a mortgage and then saying, good luck, Mr. Smith, hope you figure the rest of your life out. Our concept is that we are going to help people in ways that they didn't know real estate and mortgage professionals did, right? So one of those ways, which is really important, is the estate planning aspect of it. So that's why we asked the question on the client intake form, Mr. Smith, talk to me about your estate plan. Do you have a will or trust in place? Do your parents have that? Based upon how old they are, do your children have that in place? My concern would be, again, we're going to be if we're considering ourselves the highest IQ real estate and mortgage professionals in the marketplace, we need to back that up with sound information. So I can't just ask Mr. Smith the question, do you have an estate plan? He says no, and I say, okay, great, and keep going. Right? That didn't do Mr. Smith any good. And I also can't, if he just says, yep, all set, I can't then just say, okay, great, and keep going, right? So we need to understand what it means and how to help people in ways that they probably didn't know they needed help in. So that's why we have Josh on the call today. Josh is a friend of mine. He's also an estate planning attorney who is on our Art of Homeownership site as a trusted professional. And so I thought it'd be great to talk through kind of estate planning as a whole with Josh. Go through what we ask and then get his take on how we can be more impactful for our clients, how we can help them in more appropriate ways. And I promise you, if you're going through a refinance analysis with somebody and you don't know if they have an estate plan or not, you cannot give them appropriate advice. You just can't, right? Because you can't tell them if they should bring money to closing, if they should hold money back, if they, where their budget should be. Because if they should have an estate plan and then they don't have money set aside to do that, after the transaction's done, you've done them a bit of a disservice, and you put them in a somewhat of a compromising situation. Same thing on a purchase, right? So we're going to talk to Josh about what all that means today and be able to help our clients in a better capacity. So Josh, thanks for being with us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan.
Yeah. So, you kind of heard the monologue there in the beginning, but one of the things that we're very focused on is helping our clients in all aspects of real estate or finance for many years. One of those being of ultra importance is estate planning as a whole, right? Wills and trusts specifically. Give us a little maybe short version of, if I'm talking to Danny, I'm actually Danny on the call here. If I'm talking to Danny and I say, Danny, do you and your family have a trust or a will set up or any estate planning? Danny's got kids, he's got parents. I know he's got, enough assets to where it would make sense. And he says, no, I don't. What would be the best thing we can say there other than, well, you should have one and let us put you in touch? Like, how would you answer that when someone tells you they don't have one?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think a lot of times looking at,
Your connections, maybe it's my connection.
don't have that in place, asking them, have they thought about what that means? I don't know what's going on here.
I don't know if
Can
it's
you
my
hear me now,
connection or yours.
Ryan?
Yeah, I think we got you now.
I don't know either. Okay, there's a weird rift. Too many people on Zoom in the world.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's one of those things, anytime you ask somebody about estate planning, a lot of times they may not even know what that is or why you even need to have a will or a trust. And there's just a lot of misconceptions out there. And so like you wwere saying, I think a lot of it is just kind of educating them by, just asking them additional follow-up questions, asking them, especially when we're dealing with real estate and titling things. If you ask them to have a will or a trust, saying, okay, well, how do you plan on taking title? And do, because a lot of times you'll get some more information, then they'll want it to go to their spouse if they have one, and then their kids. Do you want that to be an easy process that's private and efficient, or do you want that to go through court? And typically people don't want to have court, they don't want to have high cost involved. And so when you frame it kind of that way, then you say, okay, well, then that's really when you really want to consider a trust. Because if you don't have a trust in titling your real estate, the property may not go to who you want, may not go to the people on the terms you want, and it may end up having to go through a lengthy court process that is open in public and costs a lot of money. And so I usually kind of prompt it with kind of, what are their goals and objectives, as opposed to saying, hey, you need a trust, hey, you need a will. It's more along, okay, what is it? What are their goals? And then we use the tool that kind of meets that result that they're looking for.
So a lot of times we have some clients that they just don't think they need one, right? Like, oh, I don't have enough to protect, right? Like,
right.
One thing I'm aware of is it's not just protecting money. It's also, directive for your children if something happens. Like, what happens to your kids? It's what happens for advanced healthcare directives, right? If you can't make a medical decision because you're incapacitated. So other than just simply protecting hard assets, which I want to get to here in a second, what else is a trust going to help them? How's it going to help protect them and their family?
Yeah, for sure. So we use kind of a chart, and I can send it to you guys, and it's also in Laura's book, which I'll make sure everybody has access to get a copy of. But we call it the default plan. So in California, if you haven't done planning yourself, you default to what California has in store for you. And just like in other areas of life that California doesn't do it exactly the way that you want things to happen, the same is often true with your estate plan. And so kind of the 6 big areas that we look at are who would take care of your kids, what would happen to your assets, how would your assets be protected, taxes, medical, and kind of your legacy. So those tend to be kind of the 6 areas that affect most people, and where you need to have some planning in place. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with how California wants things, has things structured to be done, and it may not be how you want, and typically is going to involve court processes, which are time consuming and costly, and also things not working the way you want. It opens up the door for fighting when you haven't given direction.
And meanwhile, your kids could go to like a government housing facility until they figure out who takes them, which could be very traumatic. Like, there's things like that people just simply don't want, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think, kind of the biggest area when anybody who has little kids, and I know you do, Ryan, I do, it's like, if something happens to me, I want to make sure that they're with loved ones, right? I want them with grandma and grandpa or aunt and uncle or the neighbor, somebody that they know and trust. And the reality is, though, is that's not necessarily the default plan. This was something that happened to a family several years ago down in San Diego, the Barber family, husband and wife. They had 3 little boys. They were on a family vacation, and they were unfortunately in an accident. The parents passed away. The 3 little boys survived, and they even had 2 aunts who were both willing to take them. The problem was they didn't have any planning in place. So the 3 little boys ended up in temporary foster care. Well, the 2 aunts fought in court over who would take care of them, who would get the money, kind of all of those things. And that process lasted over a year. And so these little ones, who just lost their parents and who just need to be loved and comforted and supportive are now thrown into a house with strangers in a court fight. And so, that's really the last thing I'm sure that family wanted. But it was something that, occurred because there wasn't planning in place. And, just relying on kind of the default system isn't going to, really put things in the right hands. And so that's that usually is the first thing that people want to are concerned about when they have little kids, is who would take care of them? Are they going to have to go through court? That type of stuff. And so we actually kind of, one of the specialty areas that we have is we not only set up planning for the parents, but we recommend setting up a mini plan for the kids as well. And so we call that our kids in case of emergency plan. So we have both legal and practical documents in place to make sure that the kids would be taken care of, by who you want in the way you want, without having to go through a messy court process.
Yeah, it's super important. And for everybody listening, if someone says they don't have an estate plan and you see they have kids on their application, it's a great story to talk about. Well, I take it back, it's an awful story to talk about,
right.
But it's one that helps give perspective. So, one of the things that I've kind of fallen victim to, especially before the art of home ownership, is if I saw somebody just bought a house or they're refinancing and they don't have kids, normally that triggers, okay, we need an estate plan, we need a trust, right? We have kids now.
Right.
When does it not make sense for someone to have to go through the process or the cost of getting a trust? Like, what amount of equity do they need to have? What amount of assets do they need to have to protect? If they don't have children, is there a time when us telling them to get an estate plan would actually not be all that beneficial for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, once you start having real property, that's typically when you're going to be in the trust zone, because the reality is if you don't have a trust in place, ultimately that asset's going to have to go through probate after anybody who's on title passes away. And you mentioned equity. Equity doesn't really matter for probate purposes. So you can buy a house that's worth $1 million and you can have a $900,000 loan. You're like, oh, I only have $100,000 of equity. It's not really worthwhile. Well, the issue is that when you go through probate, the probate fees are based on the gross value, not on the equity. So that $1 million property, even though it has very little equity in it, is still going to be subject to that full amount of probate. And so in that case, you're looking at $50,000 in probate cost for that $1 million probate. So even though you only have $100,000 of equity, now that $100,000 is cut in half. And so I think most people would rather not have that, especially when you can easily avoid that by setting up a trust. And you make things on top of the cost, you have the whole court process that somebody has to go through and deal with. And right now in Orange County, that process, well, right now, who knows when it's going to be, because the courts are closed. You can't even get into the courts. Right. But prior to this even opening up and them being extremely backlogged, we are looking at 18 months to 2 years at a minimum for most probates. And that's on a straightforward one. That's with no issues at all. And that's just simply because the process takes time and the courts were so backlogged, you couldn't even get a hearing even if you're ready to go right away.
Yeah, that's great information to know. So if someone says, I don't have an estate plan, I don't think I need one, or a trust or a will, how would you not necessarily overcome that objection, because it's just an opinion of theirs and they're entitled to it, but
right.
How would you educate them around that they, or challenge their perspective on that?
Yeah, I think again, it's going back to thinking about talking through how they'd want things to play out. Well, if something happened to you and you're hospitalized and you're not able to make decisions for yourself, who would you want to make those decisions, and what would you want to have happen? If did they know that you can maybe a lot of times people will take title to their house with their spouse, and so that's great. So if one of them passes, they'll take it as joint tenancy or community property with right of survivorship. They're like, yeah, look, if I pass away, then it's going to go to my spouse, and that's okay, and then I don't have kids, so my family will deal with it. Well, what they don't realize though is, well, what happens if they're incapacitated and you need to get money out of the house? I mean, you would be able to speak to this, Ryan. If both of them are on the loan, it's not like one person can usually just sign off on going and refining and taking money out. They need both of them. Right. And so that joint tenancy isn't going to do them any good. It actually makes it harmful, because now you need two people to sign and one of them can't. And so then that results in needing to go get a conservatorship, which costs a ton of time, hassle, and stuff like that. And so that situation could have been easily avoided with a durable power of attorney, saying, okay, look, if I'm incapacitated, this person can handle my legal and financial decisions. And so that's, an easy thing to overcome, but people just don't realize that. They just assume, okay, well, my spouse is on title with me, they can handle everything. And unfortunately, that's not the reality with real property. It's not the reality with bank accounts, with many assets. If there isn't that legal authority built in, it can be a huge mess.
Yeah, we've had that happen, unfortunately, more than once. So one of the things that we also talk about with our clients is just generational wealth planning as a whole, right? Which I know you guys deal a lot with. It's somewhat, if you haven't practiced it as a mortgage professional or as a real estate professional, it's an uncomfortable conversation to have, right? If you're my client and I just out of the blue say, so Josh, have you talked to parents about, if they're going to make it through retirement or if they're going to have any inheritance, right? It's something you don't want to just spring on somebody. And so we practice and we teach all the art of homeownership professionals how to do that more appropriately. But when you're talking to someone about maybe their situation, and then you're trying to figure out, okay, well, are your parents in a situation where they're protected, and are they in a situation where their retirement or lack thereof is going to impact you positively or negatively? How do you broach that subject, and how do you then get them to understand, yeah, it's a good idea for us to have our parents speak to you as well? Because that's ultimately what we're looking for. Is we don't just want to help our customer, we want to help up the generational chain and down the generational chain as well. I think we lost him. Well, maybe I'll answer that question. I'll play Josh. So again, when we're going through generational wealth planning, guys, we have to understand that Oh, right. You back? Josh, I think we lost you.
It kicked me out of Zoom. I guess it's me. Can you see me now?
Yeah, you're back. Looks like your network
okay,
is
sorry, I don't know. It kicked me out of Zoom for some reason. Didn't like me. So you're talking about generational transfers and wealth planning?
Yeah, just how do you broach the subject of talking to someone's parents or getting the child, no matter how old they are, the son or daughter, open to the idea that parent would be better off speaking with you as well?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's something where, a lot of times just, when we're talking to clients about their own planning, they start to think, well, shoot, California's plan isn't very good. And I wonder how things are going to play out because I don't want to end up having to go to court. I don't want to have to deal with this mess. I don't want there to be a big fight between my siblings. I want this to all be played out. I want my parents' wishes to be honored. And, maybe I've talked to them, but, I'm talking to my sister and she's telling them something different as far as, who should be getting the money, who should be in control, what their wishes are. And so they start thinking about how there could be this unnecessary conflict or this prolonged, court process that they have to go through. And, even selfishly just thinking, what, I don't want to have to deal with this. And so if I don't help my parents address it now, it's going to be a big problem down the road for my family. And so usually just kind of, again, educating them and walking through even for their own situation, it has them realize, this may happen to their parents. It makes it easier for them to, just say to mom and dad, and I guess, let me take a step back too. It can be a very challenging situation depending on your family dynamic. A lot of times parents are private, right? I don't necessarily tell my kids every single asset that I have or what the amounts are or things like that, right? Otherwise it'd be like, Dad, you have more enough money, I should be buying every video game possible. Same thing goes through with my parents, and so the softer and easier approach, a lot of times what we tell, our clients when they want to talk to their parents is just to ask them, hey, you know what, we were doing this planning for ourselves. Hey, mom and dad, is this something that you've done? Or, hey, if something happens to you, who should we go to? Who's your attorney? Who's your financial advisor? Who's your CPA? Who's your mortgage advisor? Who are those trusted professionals that we should go to if something happens? And so then that's a lot softer way of saying, hey, mom and dad, you need this. What's wrong with you? Why haven't you taken care of it? In that kind of accusatory kind of fashion. Right. It's a lot easier just to say, hey, we're doing this, where is that stuff? Where can I locate it? Who should I talk to? And then you don't have to get into what are the assets? Who do they want to have happen? Where's everything going? You don't have to get into the details. You take it as a much softer approach. And what we found is that makes it a lot easier of a conversation with mom and dad where you say, oh yeah, we've had our attorney, Jimmy forever. And we've had, our loan guy, Ryan forever. And, whoever it is. And yeah, the estate plan's, in the safe or it's, over here, that makes it a lot easier conversation to have. And then usually the follow-up we recommend too is if they do have, certainly if they don't have it in place saying, hey, then go talk with Josh, go talk with our guy. Or if they do have something in place saying, well, hey, when's the last time that you've looked at that and revisited it?
Yeah.
Because, our guy was telling us, you should probably look at it about every 3 years because there may be some changes in your life, in the law, in your assets. You need to make sure everything's titled properly. You need to make sure there's any updates with the law that are taken care of, and kind of just approach it in a much softer way, not an accusatory way, just a more of, hey, I'm trying to get information.
Yep. So let's talk about that. In the event that I'm talking to Mr. Smith and I say, do you have a trust? He goes, yep. Yeah, I got a trust. All good there. And I say, okay, well, when's the last time you had that reviewed? And he says, oh, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, right? 5,
Right.
whatever he says, whatever the number is, right? Assuming it's probably 3 years or more. Obviously, our goal is to refer clients to our trusted professionals because we know the level of service they're going to get. We know the level of value they're going to get from them. And we know that they're going to do a really great job and ask all the right questions and do it at a high level. How do we, if someone's already done it with this attorney, is it easy to have them go to another attorney and have you review it and make changes? Or is it more work for you because you didn't do the original one? And what would be the best way for us to refer to our trusted estate planning attorneys?
Yeah, no, that's something that gets asked all the time. I think it's one of those things where, if they have a good relationship with their attorney, I don't think, just like you, nobody's trying to step on anybody's toes. Sure. We just want to make sure that they have the right stuff in place. But it's something where if they say it's been, 5, 10, 15, 20 years since they've reviewed this, ask them, well, has your attorney contacted you and let you know that there may have been some changes in the law that affect you? Or have you reached out to them? If not, that's something you should consider doing. And a lot of times the feedback is, well, I was going to, or there was something going on, but then I didn't want to get a bill in the mail. Because the reality is, a lot of times attorneys charge by the hour, they charge by the phone call, and they're like, the last time I called them, I got a bill in the mail for $100, and half the time we were talking about our family trip. And so it can be one of those things where just, the natural setup in relationship can be, butt heads with, getting additional information and keeping things up to date. And so even if that's the case, I would recommend, it's worth the money, it's worth $100 to at least have that peace of mind. But if they don't really want to go down that route, it's something where me and, many of my colleagues, we're happy to review somebody's plan just to see, what's going on and kind of walk them through the process as far as, how things would play out and, potential options to change the things they don't like. The reality is, though, typically if I'm taking over a plan, and most of my colleagues who, I have a great relationships with most of the attorneys in town, most of us aren't going to just amend somebody's plan. Typically, it's a lot easier and better to, kind of start from scratch as opposed to trying to piecemeal something that wasn't necessarily set up properly from the start. And so there can be some additional cost, but, hopefully you're not only setting up right, but you're building an existing relationship where you have somebody who is going to be proactive on reviewing this more regularly. So then future updates, you're one, going to be taken care of. And two, you're not going to have to start over every single time where you have this relationship. So a plan that I'm amending for my clients, we don't have to start over. We can typically just work within the existing documents because we usually build the plans with a lot of flexibility from the start. So there's only kind of minor tweaks and changes that need to be made down the road.
And then last two questions here, and I'll let you go. And again, I appreciate your time. Do estate planning attorneys typically do like annual follow-ups and check-ins and reviews? Is that typical of estate planning attorneys, or is it the estate plan's kind of set and maybe you follow up every 2 to 3 years? The reason I ask is I got my estate plan, 5 years ago before I knew you. Sure. And I've never heard from my estate planning attorney one time. There's no, we get like an email, but nobody ever looks at their estate planning attorney's email because it's right. Wouldn't understand it anyways. Right. How often are they supposed to be reaching out, talking about laws or updates or changes? How often are they to have that kind of continual communication? And is that expected in your world? Because we do annual reviews every year, and in the mortgage profession, it's absolutely not expected at all. You've probably never heard from your mortgage person. No one's ever heard from their mortgage person. You just get a mortgage and everything's on you, right? And we're trying to fundamentally change that. What is it like in the estate planning world, typically, and then how do you guys handle that?
Yeah, no, I would say that, it's similar. Kind of the reality is much more similar to like what you're experiencing, where it's a very transactional process, where it's like, okay, you get it done. Here's your documents. Be on your way. Call me if you need something.
Yep.
That tends to be the traditional experience. And I'm sure then the only time people are calling is if they need to refi, or in our case, they need to update something. There's been some life event. There's not the proactive side on the attorneys, is what we found, kind of generally speaking. And that's not because, the attorneys are bad or anything or don't understand the law. It's just that's not part of their practice.
Correct.
And so for us, I started out on the litigation side, and I would tell you, one of the biggest reasons that plans would fail is not necessarily because people had nothing in place, but it was because it got out of date. And so, that's why on our end, we try to be very proactive with our clients to make sure that the trust is not only set up in the will and all the ancillary documents, but that it stays current. And so how we do that is kind of built into how we structure our process. So everything we do is on a flat fee. And so that not only includes setting up the plan, but that includes lifelong communication. So our clients can call us, they can email us without having a fear of getting a bill in the mail. And so it makes that kind of open relationship a lot easier. So if they do have a question, they do see something that comes up, they don't have to hesitate about contacting us to get some additional information and having that peace of mind. And so a lot of times it's something where, there's nothing that needs to be changed. It's already taken care of. So now they have that peace of mind. But if something does need to be updated, then they can do it at that time. And so we're usually telling people, we're in constant communication. We're sending out, monthly at a minimum newsletters. And usually if there's any major change in the law, like at the beginning of the year with the Secure Act, we're sending out emails and hard letters and contacting people we know who are specifically affected by this. So we try, and we put on webinars, we try to be very proactive. And then we tell our clients, if there's any major life events, deaths, marriages, births, divorces, acquiring assets, those are life events where you want to contact us, and we can just talk through to see if anything needs to be changed or that you can take, title the right way. And then what we also do is, we recommend that the plan be reviewed at a minimum of every 3 years. So certainly if there's any one of those major life events, you contact us sooner. But then on our end, we proactively reach out every 3 years saying, hey, it's been 3 years. It's, that time to kind of review things just to see if there's any changes in your life or the law that need to be updated. And so a lot of times it just requires a quick phone call to say, how's it going? Just checking in. Nothing needs to be updated. Or if there has been one of those life events that we can. So, we're on the same way where we try to be very proactive to review things and try to make it as feasible as possible by not, nickeling and diming clients with, hourly rates just for, a quick phone call.
Yeah, I love that. And then lastly, one of the, I don't want to say a challenge, but, most estate planning attorneys probably are not getting called on by mortgage professionals maybe as much. And if they are, they probably hear all the same things. If a mortgage professional is approaching you to become a trusted professional, what's the way that you would be most open to that relationship? And what can we do to be a great partner for you? And we have a lot of real estate agents and lenders on this call who are going to most likely, hopefully after this, go find a few good estate planning professionals that they can add to their trusted professional list, because this is such an important aspect of the lives of their clients. What would impress you, or what would help you, what would make someone stand out in your world to the point where you say, yeah, I'd love for, we'd refer our clients to you and we'd love to help your clients?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me when I'm looking at professionals, one, knowing that they're an expert in their field, that they understand what they're doing, that they're going to provide a great quality of service. And so typically that means that I want to see that there's some sort of process in place, that they actually have a system. It's not just kind of ad hoc. And, you may get, this experience with this client and a different experience with another client. I want to see that there's systems in place where every single person's going to get that same 5-star consistent experience. And so typically that means that there needs to be some systems and infrastructure in place to do that. And, I know that's something that you guys do really well, Ryan, which is why I love, sending my clients to you guys. That's what we do really well, is we have that process. So, nothing falls through the cracks. Everybody's going to get that great experience. They're going to get that level of service that they need. That's usually the first thing that I look for. The other thing that I look for is in a relationship is somebody who is really just trying to put the client first. They want to go find the best professionals possible to give their clients the best service. And that's kind of the first thing. referrals are something that's kind of secondary. And I will say, in my experience here, we work with tons of different trusted partners and stuff. When you lead with the expectation of, I just want to do good, the referrals happen naturally. When it's somebody who's like, I need a tit for tat and that type of thing, you're not really developing a relationship then. It's more of, it's a very different type of relationship. Because it's one of those things where, I could love you as much as and think your process is wonderful, but if I don't have somebody who needs a mortgage, I don't have somebody to refer you, and I can't necessarily control that. The same way with, if you can't control who's coming through your door and what their need is, but if you come from the perspective, okay, these are all the types of issues that my clients, need to be aware of, and I'm going to bring that as part of my process, and I have these great people I can refer to when those issues come up. Naturally, you're going to develop a relationship with partners who are going to, refer back to you, because they're going to create that same system and process in their service.
So as we're talking, I keep thinking of more questions, so I apologize. I'm going to ask you questions. We all have challenges on, pricing, right? Like there's dirt cheap lenders, and then there's value-based lenders. There's, low commission discount brokers, and then there's value-based agents. Same thing applies to your world, right? You have the LegalZoom, trust that they get, all the way up to, some of the best estate counseling that they can get. What is the scale? What is the range that somebody could expect? And keep in mind, we have realtors and lenders all over the country on this call. So I know Southern California may be a little bit different than other places, but what does a LegalZoom estate plan cost up to, a really well, designated, kind of complex estate plan? And it doesn't have to be exact, but some sort of range.
Sure. Yeah, no, and I think it really gets into, we tend to be much more on the value type place. We're definitely not the cheapest, but we try to be the best value, always. And I think it's really the biggest difference between most plans. I mean, you're going to find a range. I mean, you're going to find, on LegalZoom, you can go online and get a bunch of documents, and you're going to spend, hundreds of, a few $100s. And you can find attorneys who will be the same way, where it's, low hundreds or low thousands of dollars, and they'll throw in a free pen or whatever and stuff, in a microwave. Yeah. You can get, all sorts of stuff like that. Usually what we find, though, and what I usually recommend to people, is see what are you actually getting. Because if you're just getting a bunch of documents, you can get documents anywhere, right? I can go get realtor forms, I can go get mortgage forms, I can get anything online nowadays. And so that's something where if you're just selling documents, you're not really providing value. There has to be a lot more there, and that's going to apply whether it's, my business as an attorney, your business as a mortgage professional, the realtors who are on the call. If it's all you're doing is providing documents, there's not all the value that's available. And so really, it's not only just, what documents you're getting, but what is that overall service and value, and really what are you getting today, plus what are you getting down the road? Because you not only want to have a really good estate plan set up today, but you really need to have that relationship so your plan stays up to date. And so what are going to be the ongoing costs of that relationship, and what's included and what's not? Phone calls, emails, updates, what is included, what's not, because, as we've been talking about, your plan and your life is going to evolve over time. And so you want to see kind of what the overall value of the plan is. And so that's why for us, we include emails, we include phone calls, we include minor updates in the pricing of our plans to provide that extra value for them. So, we work with, a ton of, I'm part of Wealth Council, which is a nationwide network of estate planning attorneys. So for anybody who's kind of across the country and stuff, we have a great network of attorneys who are going to provide not only stellar, documents and service, but just are, really, after making sure clients are taken care of. And so if you need to find some trusted professionals, in your area, Wealth Council is a fantastic resource. So that's a place that I would look. And so most attorneys who are going to be providing a great, not only quality set of documents, but service and value in Southern California, you're typically looking at about like the $4,000 to $6,000 range. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, but that's going to be typically the range you should be expecting to be paying for a really good, solid estate plan. If somebody's charging way less or way more, then you really have to ask, okay, well, what am I getting? What all is included from just the quality of the documents, what's included from, calls, emails, kind of the initial service, and then what's going to be included going forward. Are you going to be proactive in reaching out and keeping top of mind, keeping me educated with planning, or is this just a transaction? And then the other thing to think about is, who's going to be there for my family if I really need to implement this. Because certainly you can go get a bunch of documents on LegalZoom, but if somebody dies or somebody's hospitalized, who are you going to contact and call in that emergency situation? You know, we just had somebody recently where her sister out of nowhere had a brain aneurysm and she needed to be rushed to the hospital. And, you know, during this whole situation with COVID, you know, you can't even go into the hospital with somebody right now.
Right.
And so, you know, if she just had a bunch of documents, you know, that's not going to do any good as far as, well, they wouldn't talk to her and she didn't know what to do. And she was able to call us and we were to say, don't worry, we have copies of everything. We were able to send it to the doctors. We were able to then put her directly in contact with the hospital. And then she was able to, you know, communicate with them and kind of handle the process. Under that same scenario, if she just had a stack of documents, she would have been scrambling and lost and maybe would have never even been able to contact the hospital because she wouldn't have even known who to contact, even know where to find those documents. And so it's really, you know, making sure that there's going to be that trusted advisor there for your family when you actually need to implement stuff.
Yeah, that's a really great point. People need to know when you're the most valuable, and it's a lot of times in those types of situations.
Right.
All right, last question here. So as a reciprocal partner, you know, obviously we're going to refer a lot of business to our trusted professionals, to our estate planning attorneys, because we ask every time, right? Do you have an estate plan? Talk through it, so we have the ability to push out. We know that you're not always talking about the mortgage or the real estate, but when do you find, just so we can all have proper expectations when working with our estate planning attorneys, when do you find that the opportunities arise for you to put people in touch with a mortgage professional or real estate professional? Like what are the triggers, and outside of those triggers, are you typically looking at, you know, can they be helped or can they be reviewed in some way?
Yeah, and I think, you know, if I'm kind of in your shoes and kind of looking to partner with professionals, I think, you know, one of the things I would be looking at again is kind of what systems and processes do they have in place, just like you do, to kind of ask those questions and to have that continued relationship where, you know, how often are their clients, you know, talking to them? You know, is it a situation where if it's very transactional in nature, it's going to be very unlikely, and they're billing by the hour, it's going to be unlikely that their clients are going to reach out to them in a situation where they need a loan, they need to buy or sell a house, you know, that they needed, you know, they need a referral. It's probably not going to be too likely. For us, because we're so interactive with our clients, where we're regularly communicating them at least on a monthly level, and we're regularly doing a review process, and we know built into our process from the get-go that we pair them with professional advisors. So we have a 4-step process that we go through. In step 2 of the process is when we bring in any other advisors that they need. So that's built in. And so we ask the question, you know, what's going on with the house? Do you need to, you know, refi? Are you looking to buy? Are you looking to sell? That stuff just comes up naturally because we're looking at the list of other advisors that they need. And so then going forward, we set that expectation that maybe right now they don't, you know, need one of, you know, another professional, but they know that we have that list and it's available and we want to give it to them down the road so they know that they can contact us. And so that's something where, you know, when you're looking at relationships to see, okay, do you even have a list of referrals? Is that built into your process? Do you tell clients to contact you if you need a referral? You know, they need to have that built in. Otherwise, it's really not that likely that it's going to happen. You know, they really have to have it process-based. Otherwise, it's just going to be by happenstance. They may call you, they may call somebody else.
Yeah. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so lastly here, just for everyone knows, Josh's wife wrote a phenomenal book called Good Parents Worry, Great Parents Plan. And I think it's the exact, it almost should have art of home ownership written on it, right? Because that's kind of what we talk about with our clients, right? Is it, you know, good homeowners just own a home. Great homeowners plan with the art of home ownership, right? They do things proactively. And so, Josh, where can people find that book?
Yeah, so I mean, if you want to, it's available on Amazon and kind of all the online retailers and stuff. You can also, you know, I'm happy to, if you want to contact me, we can get you copies of the book directly. There's ways we can do it. We can get you, if you want kind of a bulk hard copy books, we can get you kind of wholesale pricing. Or if you want an electronic copy, you can actually go to our website and you can download it, or your clients can download it directly from the website. It's a PDF version of the book that's free. And so that's a great option. So meierfirm.com. So MEIERFIRM.com. So M as in Mary, EIERFIRM.com. And so on there, there's a section, hold on, I'm pulling up right now so I can make sure. It's called Education, and then it says free books. And that will take you to the site that has more information about the book, and then an opportunity to download it. You just have to put in your name and email, and then it will go directly to your inbox.
Yeah, guys, I would highly recommend having that PDF to be able to send to your clients, or even have the hard copy book to hand people when they come in the office if they don't have an estate plan or they need it. I just wrote the website and the book title here in the chat box so you guys can all have it. But I think it's the more resources we can provide to our clients, the more that we don't have to sell them on helping them help themselves is better. So Josh, is there anything else that we should know about estate planning, wills, or trust that we didn't go over from a real estate or mortgage professional perspective?
No, I mean, I think it's one of those things where I think it's fantastic what you're doing kind of on the art of home ownership side. It really is going to give somebody a complete package, and you're just going to add so much more value to them, because you're going to be so much more than just a real estate professional. You'll be so much more than a lender. You're going to be, really that trusted advisor. And so you're going to be somebody that they can count on. You're going to stay top of mind. In a bunch of different scenarios, not just in the real estate side. Now you're somebody that they're going to go to if they have banking needs, if they have legal needs, if they have medical needs, all of those things. You want to be that trusted advisor. And so I think, the more that you can incorporate that into your practice, just the better you're going to be able to service your clients, and the better your practice is going to do. I know you've experienced that, and certainly we have experienced that in our practices as well. Where you provide just that extra value and service. And then you start, we talked about fees and stuff like that. You start getting way less pushback. People see that you're over delivering, the fees become a non-issue. And so I think that's the thing, just as professionals and partners and stuff. I mean, I think that's the thing that I, see we can part the most value for each other, is saying, okay, deliver that value. And we don't even have to get in that conversation about fees. It's that's just a non-issue.
Yeah. Love that, man. Well, Josh, thank you for being with us today. If you want to hang around for the next 18 minutes and kind of watch the rest of it, feel free. Otherwise, okay. I know you're busy. You can bow out, and we appreciate your time, appreciate your partnership. And for everybody who's on the call, go find yourself a Josh in your market, and make sure you have that resource to offer to your clients, because again, we can't tell our clients that they can go be successful homeowners and successful in every aspect of real estate or finance, and then have, the fact that 70% of America doesn't have these plans in place, which is simply because there's no education or there's no classes that teach anyone about this other than people finding the information on their own, which is a shame, but we're aiming to change that with our community, with our movement here. So thanks again, Josh, man. Appreciate having you.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Yeah, and if you have somebody, if you're outside of if you're inside California, I can help you. But if you're outside of it, feel free to reach out to me. Like I said, I have a number of colleagues that I'd be happy to introduce you to.
Yeah, great resource.